The most interesting fact that my very first video that I put out on Instagram, it got 900,000 views. Guess what tool was I talking about, man?
Was it the release of Ideogram?
Or yes, I was talking about Ideogram 1.0. How does an image turn into existence from a plain text?
You train the model just on this task. They take an image, they would add some noise to it, just somehow destroy that image, and then try to reconstruct that original image from the noisy one. And on top of that, it also has the support of the text.
Where did this text prompt come from? I'm sure you've seen these comments on some of these videos. I wanted my robots to clean my house and do my dishes, and I wanted to paint. Okay, but it's the opposite. Now, I want to know what is the take of someone like you who's at the forefront of it.
I think the demand for handmade art would actually
Cool. So let's jump right into it. Chitwan, thank you so much for coming here. I think this is a very special podcast, as I was telling you earlier. You happen to be from IIT Bombay as well. And surprisingly, you're what, 2015 to 2019, am I correct?
Right, yeah.
Right. And I was there 10 to 14, so we couldn't have an overlap. But I was like, okay, wonderful. Someone from my college is doing something super cool. Just for everyone who's watching this, I want to give this context that the very first video that I put out on my Instagram channel, which blew up without any promotion or anything, to like first video, 900,000 views, 30,000 followers is what we got literally by the first video within a few days. And that video, just realized like a few hours before this podcast that it was also about Ideogram 1.0. So this podcast is especially important for me. I love the fact that we are talking today. So thank you so much for coming up, Chitwan.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Okay, awesome. So Chitwan, I want to start off our conversation by asking you about a bit of your journey. You've been at IIT Bombay, you've been at Google AI Research, and now you founded Ideogram. Walk us through your background and what your journey has been like.
I'll just start with where I was born. So I was born and brought up in Bihar, in Muzaffarpur. It's a small town in Bihar, and then I did my high school from Bokaro. There's a famous school, Delhi Public School, Bokaro there. And my parents really wanted me to get a good schooling in the high school, even though there was a lot of culture of people not doing schooling and just preparing for IIT at that point. But yeah, I did my schooling from Bokaro, and then that was the point. Actually, I got really serious about IITs in those last 2 years. I prepared really hard for it, and through hard work and luck, I was able to get into IIT Bombay, and that was just like a whole new world that opened to me. And you get to know so much about technology. You get to know what's going on around the world. You develop your thought process so much in those 4 years, and my journey of machine learning and AI started by, I think, in my second year when I was looking for internships. And just like, I think I was emailing a lot of professors at that point if they are open for a second year undergrad to do internship with them. And it's generally very unlikely that professors are open for that because second year undergrads do not have that much experience. But I was still just trying out my luck. And it just so happened that Joshua was the person, one of the few people who actually responded to me and said, hey, I would love for you to come to my lab in Mila in Montreal and work on machine learning with me. And just to give you context, at that point, I did not really know what machine learning is or what neural networks are. And I did not know who Joshua Bengio is and how big of a name he is in this field. But I immediately said yes. I said, yeah, I'm just definitely down for learning opportunity. And after saying yes, I realized how big of a deal this is and how much should I prepare for this internship.
So tell us a little bit about Professor Bengio. Like now that you know him, what is it he's most known for?
Joshua is a very big name in deep learning. I think he's considered one of the 3 top people in the field, and he also won a Turing Award for it, along with Jeff Hinton and Jan LeCun. And I think a lot of his work that has become popular is around, for example, language modeling. I think he was one of the pioneers of that field in the early 2000s, where he worked on RNNs, LSTMs, and all these different technologies. And the work of GAN also came from his lab. So I think he was also, around 2014, actually, GANs took over the world in the world of like image generation, and people started applying that for language generation as well, up until diffusion models came around. And then people started using less of GANs and more diffusion models, I think around 2020s. But yeah, I think I don't think he needs any introduction in the field of AI and machine learning, and he's considered just one of the godfathers there. He has a really, really big lab in Montreal, and he has really set the scene for deep learning and AI in the city of Montreal. So now you see that all the big companies have labs there, AI research labs there, and they have had their labs there since 2017, I think.
It was, and the credit to that goes to his initiative about setting up the initial Mila lab.
Yes, I truly think so. For example, attention was invented in his lab, which
Wow.
led to the formation of transformers. And as I said, GANs was invented in his lab. So yeah, there are just so many more contributions that he has done to the field. So yeah, and obviously me with no knowledge of deep learning going to his lab, working with him was like a very surreal and a very scary experience as well. But I was all very excited to learn. And I think when I first came to the lab, he was the first one who I met and talked to, and he introduced me to everyone in the lab. And I was very honest with him that, hey, I do not know much about the field, but I'll try to learn as much as I can. And during my first internship at Mila, I could not work with him individually a lot, but I rather just spent a lot of time talking to the people in the lab, reading papers, trying to implement simple things, and I started getting a better grasp of what deep learning is and what people do in this field. And at the end of my internship, that was my second year internship, I told him very honestly that, hey, I was not able to contribute too much to your lab this time, but I would really love to come again third year if you allow me. And he immediately responded, sure, why not? And then I went back in my third year internship to Mila, because I just thought that if I want to do deep learning, there's no point of like looking for another internship. Like this is already the best place I can learn it. And during my third year, I got to work with him more closely. I got to observe him more closely. I got opportunity to have one-on-one conversations with him a lot. And I also got a chance to work with Dimitri Bardanov, who was a PhD student at Mila, and he was the inventor of attention in 2014. So we worked on a project which was a reinforcement learning project which is called Baby AI, which was basically like a benchmark that we created for benchmarking different RL algorithms. And it was introduction for me in the field of RL as well. But at that internship, I was able to be much more productive than my previous internship. And we published a paper that went on to be submitted at iClear and accepted at iClear. So those were the two internships that I think made me much more aware about deep learning and allowed me to like interact with people who are the best in this field and get a sense of how they think and how they work. Even after my internship, I continued to collaborate with them through like in my college in my fourth year. I was still remotely just like working for them. I was like, okay, I don't need any money, but I just need to like work with you guys as much as I can. As you know, like the fourth year is not really that much happening in the college anyway. So you just like gotta, if you can get some chance to work, like you just try to work. And as a result of that, we published another paper that was like a follow-up to it. And I think it got accepted in AAAI, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I think that was basically the initial part. And after that, I was very set that I want to work on deep learning and I want to pursue my career in deep learning, at least for the meantime. And I started applying to a lot of startups because at that point, companies did not used to give research positions to undergrads. Yeah. They would always have software engineering positions. And even if you get hired at Google, for example, Google will come for hiring at Google India, and Google India did not have a research lab, for example. And I was very excited about working at Google Brain for some reason. I just wanted to work there because I heard about it a lot when I was doing my internships. And Google Brain had a very nice small team in Toronto.
What does Google Brain do, and how is it different from DeepMind?
So Google Brain and DeepMind always coexisted together. So DeepMind was a team that was just working on different sets of problems, and Brain was working on different sets of problems. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, I think they both were working on like fundamental research. That was the aim. The motto of Brain was curiosity-based exploration. So whatever you are curious about, you just explore it in the field of deep learning. And you are not bound by working on research for a product per se, but your main goal is that you just are curious about something, you work on something, you write papers, you collaborate with people in the academia, and you just submit them and go to conference. That was basically the way.
It's a dream destination for anyone who wants to be an academician, but also wants to be in a company where the possibilities of implementing it maybe faster than a university, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. You get access to a lot of resources there. You get to collaborate with basically everyone. There are a couple of options after undergrad. Like you can do your masters. You can go for PhD, especially if you want to be good at a field. And that was one of the options for me in deep learning. And I realized that I would rather just work at Google Brain if I get a chance to. Of course, getting a chance to work at Google Brain was very, very hard. But I thought that if I can get a chance to work at Google Brain, I would rather pursue that than going for my master's or PhD. That was basically my intuition at that point. It was not really guided by any empirical data points, but I just thought that this just makes sense to me. But I also wanted to hedge my bet, so I applied to a lot of startups at that point who were doing deep learning related research, and startups are generally more lenient in giving you like research positions if you join them. So I applied to a lot of startups. I got some offers from startups in Japan. I got some offers from startups in Canada. But I had also applied for this program called AI Residency Program that Brain used to have. So AI Residency Program was basically a program that was for people who want to work in deep learning, but are not aware of deep learning in that sense that they have published a lot of papers, or they have a proven track record in that field. And that program was basically ideal for me. So it targets two kinds of people. It targets undergrads who are really good at what they do right now. They are good generalists, but they are not specialists in machine learning right now, and they want to train them. And they also target PhD students who have done PhD in something else other than deep learning, but they now want to switch to deep learning. And I think my personal thinking was that the reasoning of Brain Residency Program was that Google realized that they need a lot of AI researchers, but academia was just too slow in producing AI researchers because of the 5-year-long program of like a master's and PhD. So they just thought that, okay, we will just do it ourselves and we will train these AI researchers.
This program was also under Google.
Yeah, it was under Google. And they just thought that let's just do it ourselves and let's just train them in like 1 year or 2 years rather than 5 years. And I think this program existed between 2015 to 2020. And they closed it after 2020 because, as you can see, this 5 years, so academia also just caught up and they just said that, okay, we don't need this program anymore. So I was lucky enough to get into the second last cohort of that residency program. So I think they overall select, 100 students across the world to work in this residency program. And you get to choose a location. My location preference was Toronto, and I got a offer from Toronto. So yeah, and I started working in Toronto, Google Brain in 2019 end, I think, and that team was like very small team. It had like 20 people. I remember, if I remember correctly, and the team was led by Jeff Hinton, who is yet another AI pioneer. Like
Jeffrey Hinton.
Yeah, Jeffrey Hinton.
I see.
And I mean, he's again, out of the 3 people, like he's actually even more respected than them, if I may say so. I don't think he needs introduction in the field of AI, but he's just like really considered the godfather of AI as well. And again, I was at the same level intimidated, just like I was intimidated with Joshua when I first went to the Mila lab. And it turns out that the desk that I was sitting in Brain Toronto, Jeff Hinton was just sitting across me. Like just let's say this is my desk, and the desk that's just touching me on that side, Jeff Hinton is sitting there. So when I'm working, I'm just constantly seeing him because he also used to come to office and work from there. And on my first day, he just came to the office and he just walked to my desk and introduced himself, just like anyone would, like, hey, I'm Jeff Hinton and welcome to the lab and let's just chat. And he gave me a lot of time to like just talk about, he just asked me, what do you want to do in your life? And at that point, with my limited understanding of the field, I just said, I want to get converted into a full-time position at Google. I did not say I want to be like a great ML researcher or I want to be this and that.
Did he by any chance have a sense of humor? He said, listen, you're already selected. You don't need to interview.
Yeah. So at that point, it's like just for some context, it's like a full-time contract position, but it's only for 1 year. So the AI residency program is only for 1 year, and you have to. You either leave Google at that point or you apply for a full-time position. Some people just go on to do PhDs after that. But I was very set that this is the place I want to work with. Why would I ever leave? And I just like honestly just told him that. naively that, hey, my goal is that I want to get converted into a full-time position. And he started laughing. And at that point, I think there was also this thing that it was very hard to get converted into a full-time position, especially in small labs, because you can do residency programs, but for full-time positions, they were actually mostly looking for PhD who have done PhD because they did not have a shortage of that. If your headcount is only like one person a year, then you can find a PhD from the field who is really good at it, and there's no shortage of such people. So it was just very hard to get converted during that point. So I knew I had to do something spectacular to even be considered for this thing. But I had always set that as my first goal. That, hey, I want to get converted full-time position. I don't want to do PhD after this. I just want to learn deep learning here, and I just want to start working here more. But yeah, like during my course of residency program, I got to like all my co-founders. I got a chance to like meet all of them. They all used to work at most of them used to work at the same lab beside me. And even at that point, even though I was very experienced in deep learning, I was not nearly as experienced as them. Like I could not hold conversations on machine learning and deep learning with them, the level that they think about and the experience that they bring and all those things. But I was just working too hard and just trying to learn everything as fast as I can. And I think in my first 6 months of my residency program, I was able to publish 2 papers. And and one of those papers was my first author paper. So that was my first author paper at that point, and it was actually completely unrelated field to what I'm working on right now. It was on machine translation, because at that point I was just working on something that people around me are working on, and everything just used to get me excited about deep learning. It was not about like, oh, I want to work on images or videos or whatever. Yeah, so the first paper got accepted ICML, then the second got accepted in EMNLB. And that gave me like a lot of confidence that, hey, I am able to write a first author paper if I want to. And I think that like when you get that paper in, that just boosts your confidence like a lot. That okay, this first hurdle has been crossed. People know that I can do research. I don't have to prove to people that I can do research and things like that, and yeah. I don't have to prove to myself as well.
You must be among the very rare, set of people who're only bachelors, who've not done a master's, PhD at that point, and you were still able to publish papers at par. Must be a big deal, even in the lab, right?
Yeah. So the funny thing is that there were 2 AI residents in my cohort in Toronto, and the other one was also a bachelor, like an undergrad who joined residency. I think he already had 10 papers by the time he joined, or something like that. So one thing I've always found is that even though I think it is rare for undergrads to publish paper, but when you're working at labs like Google Brain, you will always find people who are just extraordinary. And you always have some people to take inspiration from, yeah. and try to reach the level of. So I've always been lucky in that sense that I've never become too comfortable in my life, because I always know that there are people who are doing significantly better than me in their life. So he was like, for example, one of those examples that I just used to look up to, and I used to have conversations with him and talk about what he's working on, how he thinks, and stuff like that.
And how did Ideogram happen from here onwards?
Oh, yeah. So basically, then I eventually started working on image generation and video generation when diffusion models came around. At that point, I was still working on other problems, but then one of my co-founders, William, he convinced me to just drop everything and just work on diffusion, and because we really believed in it, that okay, this technology might be really transformative. When the paper came out in 2020, and we just said that okay, let's just work on this and let's just see what happens. And then I dropped everything and I just worked on it, and the results we were seeing were just like spectacular. And we just said that okay, so the task that we worked on was super resolution at that point, image super resolution, and yeah, at that point we just realized that okay, this technology can be really good. Let's just like put all our chips on it. Me, Muhammad, William, all 3 of us co-founders start just working on this, and we try to tackle as many problems as we can with this generative modeling framework, and every problem just kept getting solved and solved and solved. And eventually we started working on text to image generation, but by that time I think Jonathan had also joined Google. So Jonathan is the first author of diffusion paper, and he had also joined Google. We got a chance to meet, and we said that okay, given that you are working on diffusion models as well, we are working on diffusion models as well, let's just collaborate and let's just work on this together. And then we started working together, and that's how like a connection between all 4 of us started forming as well. And yeah, we just worked on text to image. I think working on text to image was just like like a inflection point in all of our careers, to be honest, because at that point we were just like researchers who just wanted to publish papers and get validation like that. But text to image just became like a significantly bigger project than like a mere research project. Like it became like a company wide effort where once we started getting results, like everyone was just like wowed by it. So that was the time when like Dolly 3 had just come out, and we were kind of scooped by it, but we already had like results better than Dolly 3 at that point internally. And that's why we really wanted to like publish it. It was also the time when like when you got a feeling yourself that this technology just works, right? It's just not like academic anymore. It just works, and it's just insane how it works. Like it was just like magical and surreal. Like I remember we used to just play with that model for like hours and hours and hours and not do any work, because it's just so much more fun to just like play with it.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that. Yeah, as a
Yeah,
user, I can imagine if you were the creators yourself, every time you got a successful, very nice image coming out, that pride in your work would be reinforced so much.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, I remember like we were up till like 5 a.m. playing with the model, and the next meeting is on like 10 a.m. and we are just like sleepy, and they ask us, why are you sleepy? I was just playing with the model. I was just not able to sleep. And I remember like some of those days like that. And the frustrating part was that we could not share it with anyone, because we were not allowed to like share it with like the people outside the company and stuff like that. And at that point, we also like emailed like Jeff Dean, for example. We emailed like Sundar saying that, hey, we got these results, and they all were like very impressed. And that was the time where we also got to connect with those people. That was like something that we never thought of, that they would be interested in what we are doing in a small lab in Toronto. But yeah, like just working on image, and then immediately we realized that, okay, if it works on image, it's gonna work on video as well. And Jonathan already had a paper on video, and we said that, okay, let's just combine forces and let's just train like the best video model that has ever been. And we all went to New York. Me and William went to New York because Jonathan lived in New York, and we just did a sprint there for 3 weeks, and we just were able to like start training video models that just used to work significantly better than before as well.
I haven't seen a video product from you guys yet.
Yeah, so we don't have a video product in Ideogram, but at Google we worked on Imagine Video. So if you
I see.
just go to like imagine.research or do
I for a moment I thought you accidentally leaked your next project.
Oh, no. So we worked on video at Google, and yeah, if you go to Ideogram, sorry, imagine.research.google/video, we had like I think the video model was actually unbeaten up until like Sora came out. Like it remained unbeaten for like a year or two. It was just like it just worked amazingly well. And that this is all in 2022. So we already had these models in like 2022 that were working significantly well. And yeah, at that point, we just all independently just realized that, hey, I want to work on this technology, right? This technology does seem promising, just like you were saying initially, right? Like when you come across this technology, you immediately realize that there's so much potential on this technology, about this technology, and you just want to work on it. And it doesn't matter. The research publishing papers, like, at least for me, it just stopped mattering. Like I had already published like 10, 12 papers by then. This Imagine paper won like the best paper award in NeurIPS. And even then, I just thought that I would rather want this model to be just available to people and they play, rather than me getting like a best paper award for this. That doesn't matter anymore. Like I want this in the hands of people and see what they do with it. And I think this realization was just shared among like all of our co-founders as well, who all have a research background, but they all just realized that, hey, this technology is just too important to like miss out on. So we just decided to leave, and that's basically how Ideogram was formed. Again, like I think just like every startup, we did not have any idea of like what to do, but we knew that we had the talent to do what it takes, and we can do all the hard work to like figure it out. And that's basically has been the core way Ideogram has been functioning up until now. Right, every day we do encounter new situations, but we just have the faith in ourselves that, okay, we can figure something out here. Like so yeah, that's basically how the company has been going so far. Yeah, and it's been 1.5 years now since Ideogram was formed.
Yeah, so I see that you had formally announced the company formation in December 22. Is that correct?
Yes. So we left Google in December 2022 and founded the company then.
Right. And that is the same month Chat GPT also dropped.
Yes, yes. So I remember when we were working on the starting month of Ideogram, I think there was NeurIPS conference or something, and they demoed ChatGPT there, or they released ChatGPT at that point, and it was like all the buzz at that point.
So,
And
so whatever you did at Ideogram, like, because sometimes for people who are not from your world, you were in the back end scenes of it much before people knew that generative AI was a thing, and deep learning, whether it be deep learning, whether it be generative, models that were coming up, diffusion models, you were in the middle of that journey. So, you had a journey parallel to OpenAI's. Is that correct? And it wasn't,
right,
because sometimes I think people mix it with Chat GPT came and then everything else came, because they kind of released it quickly and it
yeah,
was good enough to be used. And like, if
yeah,
5 days, 1 million people is not a small deal, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I think you guys were having a parallel journey almost the same, at the same pace in the early days.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's also like a very different product. Like ChatGPT is a language model, and we are working on image generation, video generation, and our goals are like very different
Yeah.
from that perspective. And yeah, just for context, like we did Imagine in like May 2022, and I mean, I also at that time I also visited OpenAI as well. Actually, like I got a chance to talk with like Sam as well, Ilya, and all these people, and because I was also considering like joining them as well during that point, and they had Dolly 2 as well that had come out during that time that they were really excited about, and we had a lot of conversations about future of language models, and they of course did not tell us about ChatGPT, but they told that they have like a much really good language
They had
model.
GPT-2 lined up back then in the middle of
They had
2022.
GPT-2. They had, I think GPT-2 was already released, but I think GPT-3 was already released by then as well. But it was never available to people as a product.
It was more like an API.
Yes, it was more like an API, and like a normal public was just not exposed to this
If I
technology.
remember correctly, I think they had allowed a few writing tools to use their GPT-2 and 3 APIs,
Yeah,
which were
yeah.
kind of offering Jasper and all of these people
Yes,
were
correct,
doing.
correct.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, I think a lot of companies formed out of their APIs initially,
Yeah,
but I think even they did not expect, if I understand correctly from what I know, they did not expect ChatGPT to be like a
correct.
huge deal. I think, but it just turned, and that's basically how tech products work sometimes. Like you just gotta release it, even though you don't have confidence in it. You just gotta release it, and sometimes what's the worst that can happen, right? And yeah, they just found out that okay, this
Insane.
product is really works. Yeah.
Insane. I love this, man. You've had one heck of a journey for sure. I want to specifically, before I move on to the next segment, and I want to get deeper into ideogram as we speak. But before that, a lot of people, might be very curious about this. You were among the top 100, 200. What you were in the top 100 something AIR, right? In JEE, what rank did you get?
Oh, so I had 148 rank.
You had
Yeah,
148,
yeah,
right? And so, I know for a fact, we've been in the same college, and I sometimes joke around this with people that, if you're in 100, 200 in that zone, you're a different person. Okay. We're not talking about the same league. So that's how I look at it, because I was 1099, and at no level, the people across me, there was an AIR1, AIR2, AIR3. When I spoke with them, I'm like, different class. That's how you used to, this is just a joke, right? But
right.
more importantly, what I'm curious about is, what do you think was the role of cracking a great rank in IIT combined with your experience at IIT? How did that shape you and maybe the future outcomes, which are, ridiculously interesting, given that you were working with the giants of AI?
Yeah, I think so. I've always thought about this thing quite a lot, and I've also discussed with my peers quite a lot about it as well. I think cracking an exam like that so early in your life, like I was like 17 years old or something at that
Exactly.
point, it just gives you a lot of confidence in
Yeah.
yourself that you can, if you're, and I think when people hire IITians,
Yeah.
they do not hire them because they are great people or whatever. They just hire them because they know that under pressure they were able to perform and get back an exam
Yeah.
at such a young age. So if we motivate them enough, they can really, really work hard and like be successful. And I really believe in that. So I think
Yeah.
that was one thing that really helped me, like just gave me a lot of confidence that, hey, I was able to crack this exam. And also, like once I'm in IIT, I think there is, I would say, like people say, okay, there's not a lot of impact of which college you go to and stuff like that. I think one of the biggest impact is just that IIT Bombay is like known everywhere, because
Yes.
let's say I am from IIT Bombay and I would do something good at some place. Then in future, whenever they hire people, they would look at IIT Bombay as a good sign, and they would just like say that, okay, if he's from IIT Bombay, let's just hire him.
Yeah, that's what I usually tell people. These are quick markers of, decision making. Forget
Yeah,
success. Yeah, decision making is based on what are the odds of this particular person being a great hire. And then you're like, oh, I need to simplify my decision, man. अगर इसने IIT किया है तो ठीक होगा.
exactly. And on the contrary, I will also give you an example that if people, for example, if there is someone who has not done their bachelor's from IIT in India, and they still ended up at Mila or Google or something, I have way more respect for them as well. And I would also hire them, because I believe that you did not get the boost from IIT, but you still
Yeah,
figured it out, grinded it out, and worked your way up here. So I have
absolutely.
like massive respect for you. So there are both kinds of people, and I have respect for both of them. Basically, at the end of the day, maybe IIT was not the day for you, but you still figured it out, and you ended up at a nice place, and that's all that matters.
And was there anything specific during your college, right? College years? I know that you were, of course, you had already started working with the Mila lab. You were working with Professor Joshua Bengio and his lab for a while, for a fairly long time, for an internship for sure. And that got you the early exposure to deep learning and reinforcement learning that, I mean, it was a dream. I know my batchmate, like a very good dear friend, his name is Sushant, and if he's watching, he would right now be envious of you, because he was the one to introduce me to reinforcement learning, right? And he's still till date, I think he's one of the brightest folks to be working in that field, and he's all academia oriented in terms of, he's a very research guy. He needs to figure shit out, invent new things. He's that guy. Okay. And probably I will put you guys in touch as well, in case, because he's definitely someone I admire a lot. So he was the one to bring that to my notice, and he, in 2016 or 17, I remember he was telling me that reinforcement learning is the future. Deep learning and
Mhm.
reinforcement is the future. This is the only way machines will ever learn, and I want to commit to this space. And he was saying these things back then, and he was trying to use it for a use case for stock market prediction.
I see.
Like, I see whenever in the IITs anyone cracks a new algorithm or new logic, they're like, let's apply it to stocks first, right? That's the
Right.
thing with smart people. They want to first make money, then figure shit out
Yeah.
and stuff it.
Yeah.
So that was the funny bit. I think they got some early success with that also. But I think it was very remarkable that you had that entire experience back then. Now, during these 4 years in college, were there any highlights which shaped you into something, which you are very proud of? That, oh, I'm glad that I had this experience, and that's why I could probably land up where
Yeah,
I
to
am.
be honest, I think the biggest takeaway for me from college has just been finding friends that share the same. So you
Yeah.
find friends who have basically been through the exact same life as you, more or less, right? They have also grinded it out in the last 2 years before preparing for IITs, and came here and are similarly scared as you, similarly worried about the future, thinking about the future every day. And they all are like learning with you and figuring life out with you, because those 4 years are very formative years. So I think the biggest thing I have to thank IIT for is just giving me like friends. And so I am not in touch with friends in my school. I'm not in touch with friends, but I am in touch with all
Like,
of my friends from college.
there's
And I think,
insane belonging that we feel because of
yeah,
that particular
exactly.
place.
Yeah, and even right now, like we just share so much of our journey. Like, right, a lot of people from IIT also came to Canada or USA. Again, you are just scared and excited at the same level, and you are again working in tech. You are working in like
Yeah.
similar companies. You are working on the same set of problems. A lot of them are just working on machine learning, for instance. So, and the people that you find here as your friends, like for example, I have a lot of friends who were born and brought up in Canada or USA. I am great friends with them, but I do not share the same journey with them.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like my life has been very different from them. Our cultures are very different, so I cannot connect with them on that level. So I always go back to my friends in IIT to connect on that level, and they always get me. And I think that's just like been one of the just realizing that I'm making friendships that are going to be they're going to last forever. And these are people who are not like jealous of you, who are not like envious of you in any way. They're just like excited about you. Like when I got
Insane. Yeah, the amount of cheer you would get from people around you. It's because when I hear people around me, sometimes, especially from my friends who are not from one of the IITs, when we have general conversations, it seems like they have more of this observation that other people are not as happy about their success.
Mhm.
When I look at IT, I'm like, wait, I don't know such people. I cheer for everyone. Everyone cheers for me. So I didn't
Yeah.
get that, but it seems like that's a real thing.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, like I have found people in my high school and college, high school and school who have been like jealous. At least I thought that they were jealous of me or whatever. But yeah, in college it's just completely changed. And just like I think that realization, I think you get that realization maybe like towards your second year or something that hey, these friendships are here for to stay, and these are actually authentic friendship that I never got a chance to make before. And I think yeah, that was just like my biggest realization and my biggest takeaway from the college.
Wonderful. And the second thing I wanted to know, you've worked with some of the most prolific people in academia. They're intellectually, giants in their own fields in whatever regards, whether it be Geoffrey Hinton, whether it be Professor Bengio. I think what I was curious to know is when you work with such, gifted, I know gifted is a shallow word in some ways, but you get the point, right? These are people
Yeah.
with tremendous capability and they've proven their work in their fields. What is it that you see, like what is it very different about them? Are they extremely intelligent? Are they extremely hardworking? Are they very lucky? What is it that you've observed, very personal basis? Tell me some of those.
Yeah, so one thing about Jeff and Joshua is that I've got a chance to meet them at a very late stage of their career. So they have already been successful,
Hmm.
they've already like earned their name in the field. So I did not get a chance to like see them when they were actually like researchers like me and trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
But like for example, I would say that your like people I always thought that when you, as an undergrad, when you email professors, they would just not end up replying to you. Like they would
Yeah.
most of the time they would ignore your emails. But like these two people never ignored me, right? Like when I emailed them, just like a naive email or whatever, they would reply to me, right? And I feel like that was just something that was like just very surreal for me, and I'm just like really thankful to them for it. Like they look at people. Even in their undergrad who are just trying to figure things out, and they are empathetic towards them, and they're trying to like help them as much as they can. And I think that's just my biggest takeaway from these personalities. One other special thing about Jeff, I believe, is that he's very good at explaining any idea about deep learning in a very simple way. So he would take like an idea, like when whatever he has worked on, generally you would find that even though the papers end up being like 40-page long, but he would summarize that idea in like 5 lines in a way that that paper could not do that. So I think he has a good career in teaching. I think in
Yeah.
initial part of his career, he was a professor at U of T. So I think that maybe comes from there. But I think what I learned from him is just that deep learning is a lot about intuition, then deriving things from mathematics. I'm not saying that he's bad at math. I think he's pretty good at
You're saying
mathematics as well.
intuition, like for the researcher's intuition matters more than their mathematical abilities, is what he was saying?
He did not say that, but I think I kind of get that from after at
I
least
see.
observing him.
Interesting.
And I think it's actually true for a lot of people that I work with now as well, that in deep learning, and that's why experience is so important. So if you get experience in deep learning over and over, then you start building intuitions that are actually more likely to be correct than ever, right? Like the more experienced you are, the more probability there exists that your intuitions are correct. And I think that's what basically drives a lot of research, to be honest, right now. When you look at
Same.
like large language models, there's no like math that proves that large language models are going to like work, but it's just sheer intuition and motivation and the drive to just take it all the way, right? And so basically, the way I would like to put it is that you you believe in something so much that you will it into existence by just working hard enough, right?
Really? That's how you would describe it? I wasn't.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
believe like that's how big companies
Wow.
work. Like OpenAI thought that everyone was okay against LLMs, like no one believed in it, right? But they just
Oh.
worked hard enough to just like will it into existence, and it just worked, right? They and many times you can fail as well if you just bet on the completely wrong idea. So guided by a good intuition and just sheer hard work and dedication towards a problem, I think that's basically how deep learning works right now.
Do you also imply with that that one doesn't have to be particularly, gifted at doing that?
To be honest, I think I initially used to think that people are gifted and not gifted, and I would just say that okay, I'm not gifted, so I'm not good at this field. But now I think I'm very strong in my belief that it's just all about hard work. Most of the good people that I know are just average people like everyone else, but they just worked really, really hard, um, and, uh,
Interesting.
and that's how they are really, really good at what they do right now.
So you would not, for such complex problems, and especially, something as powerful as what we're looking at, the new wave in AI. So you're saying that you wouldn't particularly bet so much on intelligence as much as you would on someone's will and persistence, and and of course the experience to build that intuition. Is that
Yes,
how far you would go?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I would say that hard work and dedication is just so much more important now.
Insane, insane. No, I wasn't expecting to hear that, but this is a revelation, because I thought that was a kind of a given, and you kind of said the exact opposite. But very cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's a very new insight for me. Awesome. So we're going to jump into now this part where I want to know a bit more about Ideogram, right?
Mhm.
And there are a bunch of image generation models out there now,
Mm.
and you've probably benchmarked yourself against every single one, and you know those things in and out as well. So what
Yeah.
I want to know is, number one, how do you guys describe Ideogram's mission in some ways from a more broad perspective, right?
Mhm.
And then how do you stand differently from the image generation models that the world has been using for a while? Midjourney, DALL-E 3 are the most common ones.
So yeah, I think the field is definitely evolving every day, and new players are coming every day in this field. So it's a question that everyone actually wonders about. I think it's true in LLMs, video, images, in every field basically. But I think so I think when we started Ideogram, our mission was basically that we want to make everyone creative. If someone, I cannot draw a painting, but if you give me access to a tool, I'm able to write text,
Yeah.
like creative text that can let me create paintings that I would have wanted to draw, but I could not draw. But this tool just allows me to do it all of a sudden, right? And that was basically the sheer in motivation that we had to like build Ideogram at the start, at the beginning. And for the most part of it, that's basically the belief that we hold right now. Like our mission right now is helping everyone become more creative, and we really truly believe in that. And I think when we started out, so for example, Midjourney was one of the biggest competitors at that point
Yeah.
that we were looking into, and Midjourney was on Discord, and we decided that okay, let's try to make things a bit simpler. Let's try to make a website where people can just like go, because my parents don't know how to use Discord, right? Like if I want my mom to,
I hated the part that Midjourney was on Discord. I hated it. So yeah,
yeah,
I can
yeah.
understand.
So, and we knew that they would also be thinking about the same thing, but they chose Discord out of like convenience at that point.
Yeah.
But we thought that okay, this is a nice point to just like have like a website where you just go there. There's nothing else. You just type and you generate images, and you see other people's generations.
Yeah.
You take a generation, you like it, you follow those people, you remix those generations, and you create something new, and that person gets a notification that hey, this guy remixed your image, and then you look at what people have done with your image over like the course of time. What is the journey of the image from
Yeah.
the text to like multiple remixes? And that just sounded like a very it's not something that we thought about initially and then implemented it. It just came organically to us.
And that's still more from the point of view of the interface and the interaction design that you guys chose as a
Yeah,
different path.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Fundamentally, as a model, I'm trying to understand if, in what ways is it similar and different with the other people? And, what's a simple way for me to do this? Because I know that you guys are Right now, you guys are one thing that I know for sure. You're the best at like, text generation with
Yeah,
generative
yeah.
AI, right? And it's insane.
Yeah, so one of the things that we initially bet on is that just training our own foundational models. And the thing that it buys you is that you always make different decisions. Everyone makes different decisions when training these foundation models. They're like minor differences in your decision making that goes into it. And that just makes the nature of the final model just very different from one another. So let's say if I take a base model from somewhere and I just fine tune it, it might end up that, like, let's say there are 10 companies that are doing this. It might end up to be the case that all these 10 companies produce like a similar looking images at the end of the day. They might be different a little bit, but the base model is the same.
Yeah.
So the behavior of the model does not really change like that much. But when you have trained a base model yourself, it just trained on like very different data, it's trained on very different captions. It has like different design, architecture design sometimes. And all of those things just give a very unique personality to your model, right? And that's what something that we found when we released Ideogram. It was just better at text than anyone else. We know why it's better at text than anyone else, but my point is basically that it was possible for us to do that because we trained our own models from scratch and we were able to bake those capabilities into the model already. And to be honest, we did not really know that text on image is like a huge thing. We just wanted that capability to be there, and then we realized that it's actually it has like a huge viral thing to it. And like, for example, initially in the platform, people would communicate with us through images. Let's say they want a feature, right? They want like feature. So they would generate like a poster of a protest
Oh, I
where
was
people
there.
are,
I saw all of that.
yeah,
Ideogram, please do this.
and everyone would like it. And then not everyone will like it, but I think there was some way to like put that image up on the top page or something, and it came to the top page. And that's how we used to know that what people want. And that became like a visual medium of communication. And now we see that there are creators who want to thank other creators, so they would write like a long letter just through the image, because the typography is getting better and better. So their thank message is also getting bigger and bigger. And now they can write whatever they want in like this image. And that's how they communicate with each other. They cannot direct message them, they cannot comment on them, but maybe it's intentional because we just want them to communicate through images. And yeah, it just has been like, I think this is very unique to our platform right now, that no one else offers. And yeah, through the course of the company, you get to know about so many artists who use your platform in different ways. Like, we train models, but we are not as creative as people who use these models, right? Like, if you ask me to generate a good image from the model that I train, I would not be able to do that. But people are able to, like, I would be able to generate great images, of course, but they would be just on the next level. They know how to talk to the model at the next level. And I always have like a deep respect for them. I've always seen that from the very starting of Imagine as well. And it still holds true, like after 2 years, that they just have an edge over everyone else. And you see people who use Ideogram because they are in depression, they lost their pet or something like that, and they would
Wow.
and they would just like use Ideogram as a therapy. You see people who just come to Ideogram to just like collaborate with other people, take inspiration for designs and things like that. And I think there's also a separate economically viable field of people using it for logos, people using it for generating posters. They want to generate pamphlets and they don't want to like spend a lot of money on it, and they can now generate it immediately. And something that just stands out and something that is guaranteed to be like unique in the world, right?
Yeah.
Because no one, it's a fresh generation out of the model, and no one has access to it, and you get access to it and you can just like put it out. And and so it has just been an experience where we are still trying to figure out what are the core use cases of this model. But if I start writing down the list of use cases that we have found people use, it's just numerous, right? A lot of people have already created a lot of t-shirt designs and printed t-shirts and sent us like pictures of like t-shirts. We see it on Etsy sometimes that images created by Ideogram or imprint on t-shirts, and they're selling those t-shirts and things like that. My mom wanted me to generate a lot of images and put it on the wall of our house. And I felt like that's also something that a lot of people would do. And her logic was that it's just unique images, right? Like, I can buy posters from the market, but who knows, like 100 other people also bought that poster from the market. But if I generate an image on Ideogram, that's a unique image that's in our house, which I think makes sense, right? So So yeah, there are just like a lot of like these use cases that I think are coming up.
Do you also have your APIs available for people to use?
Yeah, we do. So we released API this time with the 2.0 launch.
Got it. Yeah, I remember you said this is a new launch. I want to understand what is because when you're talking about API, then you're talking about someone using it for usually commercial purposes, right?
Uh-huh.
Usually, of course.
Yeah.
Uh, because when you talk about B2C use cases, as an individual, I may use it for nostalgia purpose. I had a pet and I've lost one. I may use it for decorating on my walls. I may use it for I use the word casual art, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
this is not serious art until you yourself are a serious committed artist. I think that's called casual art, right? Someone may use it for printing t-shirts and so on. I see them as more B2C or direct, individual user use cases.
Yeah.
I am curious to know whether it be for ideogram, ideally that, or other text to image generation models. What are the commercial use cases that are already in place and which are showing clear difference in your revenue at this point?
Yeah, so I don't have a lot of data point on API yet because we just released it like very recently, and it's still in beta phase. But so I'll just give you like a few examples of the use cases that come to my mind. So I think there are a lot of companies that are just like that have a business model of a playground, that they would have a bunch of different models available, and they let people choose. Like for example, Po is like one of the
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's just like a playground that just allows people to use like LLM and the image model in the same space. And those people do not train their own models. They just want an API access to the best models that are out there. So those would be like a very natural customers for API business, right? And they drive a lot of users, because you can imagine that if you are the best image model on their platform, then they would all the people in their platform are using you, and your brand just gets more awareness.
Got it. What else?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of, so for example, when I give you an example of like logo design, right?
Yeah.
So we generate logos, but we do not offer specialized tools to then like play around with it that much.
Exactly.
Right? And there are a lot of companies who are just specializing in like just logo design, and they want to give their customers like full, like they, and these companies like predate generative models, like they just exist, right? Like creating logo has been a business for a while.
Yeah.
And
I remember the two that I've used, Brandmark is one, Luca.ai is another. I could easily imagine them being fans of Ideogram.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very natural for them to not train their own model, but just see which models are the best logo generators out there, and connect to them. So that just becomes like a...
The logo generation is the use case here, which I can imagine either individuals or companies paying for it.
Giving logo as an example, but I would say like t-shirt design is a field, like poster design, like Canva in general, right? Like Canva is integrating AI into its existence like so well now, right? Like it has, I think it acquired like Leonardo at some point recently, and now it has a text to image counterpart to it. So you can imagine all the companies that are not Canva, that have not acquired Leonardo, they still need a text to image model, and they want an API to connect to, so that they can generate images. And I think a lot of these, for example, there are like some companies who would just be like great real image generators or something like that. And there are a lot of companies that are also trying to figure out the social media angle of text to image as well. And they only want to invest on the social media part, but they don't want to invest on the text to image part, so they can connect to the APIs and use our models there. So I think these are just like the use cases that are on top of my head. But again, as I said, the longer the API remains in existence, the longer new use cases that we will ourselves be surprised by and we'll find out. But yeah, it's just yet to be seen.
Fair enough. I think that is very valid. I think I agree with the logo thing. I'm a heavy user of generative AI, everything, especially because I pay for a lot of tools and I test them out, I review them, I teach other people. So I'm like, I really go deep. Then I've been a product and business and tech guy. So I kind of try it out for my use cases. I'm trying to code a random game using Claude artifacts someday, right? Then there's a new thing that I've recently started doing where for every big occasion that comes in on the calendar, right? For example, 5th September is going to be Teachers' Day. 2nd October is going to be Mahatma Gandhi's birthday.
Yeah.
So these places of celebration or occasions, I think earlier it used to be the department of a few wonderful graphic designers who would make something for a company. He would then send wishes to people, happy Janmashtami, happy Rakhi, and all of that. And
Right. Right.
we would have just standard templates, probably gaudy, non-unique things floating around on WhatsApp and on social media. I think this, which is what I call casual art in general,
Mm.
but when
Mm.
applied to the idea that you, for your company, for your personal use cases, especially for your company, for social media, you have so many more ways to
Yeah.
express your creativity, which you never had before, however much Canva you knew how to use, right? It
Right.
didn't matter
Exactly.
if you were good at Adobe Photoshop or Premiere Pro,
Yeah.
you simply couldn't do what you have today,
Yeah.
which means
Exactly.
I think the marketing and the social media engagement and marketing part is what is going to probably turn out as a biggest use case.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I think it's probably also because it lands at the perfect intersection of creativity and business. Marketing lands there.
Yeah. Correct.
Pure art, I'm not sure exactly how it would apply until unless we're talking about filmmaking. I'm not calling filmmaking as pure art. It's a very complex art form with so many moving parts. It will, of course, use it. I think it's going to win. But in terms of business, I think marketing is which is going to boom
Yeah.
up. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Yeah. 100%. I think I think advertisement is just such a big. Even when we were at Google, we used to discuss about like the future of generative AI, and advertisement just seems to be like a very if you can create ads that people can click, will be willing to click on, and I think generative AI can be optimized for that, and it just gives you like a lot more freedom to like iterate over your designs very quickly, and create something creative that no one has ever seen before. No matter how long generative AI is remaining in the world, you can always create something that's unique to yourself. And I think that's just like a very exciting world to live in.
In fact, I would go as far to say I can imagine very soon specialized products that will come in whose only job will be to constantly do A/B testing on what works better purely from creative standpoint of exactly what works, and they would be specializing repeating that process n number of times until the ROI of from that ad is insanely high.
Right.
That is
Right.
only possible with generative AI with image plus text abilities both simultaneously. It cannot be purely with image, as we know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people just like overlay text on images, and the fact that the text remains like ingrained in the image is just so unique to our model. And that's something that actually like people like when we actually were beta testing our models initially, people said that, hey, your new model just looks like it overlays text on image, and they were like really offended by it. And then we actually made a lot of effort to like fix that problem, and now the model that we released actually does not have that problem. So people notice these kinds of things immediately who are working in this field, and they don't want to go back to overlaid text. They want to find like a text that naturally belongs to that image.
I've
Yeah, it
seen
just
your recent generations. I think the text, it is indistinguishable that it's better than the blend you can get in something like Canva.
yeah. So
Until you say a great graphic designer, of course. I'm talking about
yeah,
a
exactly. Yeah. So we made a lot of effort to like make that possible, but I think we can still we can find out like cases where it doesn't work that well, and hopefully we can improve that in the future iterations. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to talk about one technical aspect, probably, which I want you to simplify ideally for people who may not understand how image generation works. But if I were to ask you to explain very simply, how does an image turn into existence from a plain text? Simple question, very broad question. You don't have to go into the depth and technicalities, but give me a great analogy, maybe something simplistic like, okay, this is why image generation works because it blows my mind. Why is this happening, man?
Yeah, so I'll try to give an explanation. I don't know how simple it is, but I'll just try my best.
Sure.
So basically, the way these models are trained are that they take an image and they would add some noise to it. So just think of noise as just like a white noise to an image. Just somehow destroy that image, and then try to reconstruct that original image from the noisy one. So the hypothesis is that in this process, you can only do this process well when you really know what images are and how images are formed. Because if I give you like a destroyed image, you will see that, oh, there's a silhouette of a person here. I can see that a little bit, so I will reconstruct that to like a person. I can see like a red color, so maybe that's like a shirt of that person, and things like that. That's how you like learn. The model learns what an image looks like. And on top of that, it also has a support of the text. So it also gets text prompt as input. So reading that text, and you can totally imagine how text can be helpful here, because the text would say that a man is here, or like a dog is here on the right. So it knows that, oh, this part, I think that the text prompt says that there is a dog here, and I can see that the dog is like this height from this partially destroyed image. So I'll like construct a dog here. Oh, the text prompt says that it's a Pomeranian dog, so it should look like this.
Where did this text prompt come from, though?
So let's say we have this. I'm assuming that we have access to this data set. So there are a lot of great captioners also out there that will take images and caption them as well.
There are thousands of people who are sitting down looking at images and describing them in text, and then you go reverse direction from it.
Yes, exactly. So basically, you train the model just on this task that, hey, I'll give you an image, I'll destroy it to different degrees, and I'll ask you to reconstruct the image back. If I destroy it completely, you can imagine that it's very hard for the model to fix it.
Yeah.
But if I destroy it slightly, then it's very easy for the model to like perfectly reconstruct it back. So that's basically how the model is trained. Right now, the question is, if you have an access to this model, how do you generate a new image? So the way you generate a new image based on a text prompt is that you start with a completely destroyed version of an image and ask the model to fix it. It will try it. It will do like a bad job at the starting, right? Because it's completely destroyed. It has no idea what it is. It will be like some blurry image or something like that.
And you keep repeating.
And then you add a little bit less noise than you added last time. And then you repeat that process for like 100 times or like 50 times, 100 times something. And eventually the final output, if the model is good, will actually look like a real image. So that's basically how these models work. It's as simple as that.
Insane. I think, yeah, even for me, I didn't know this kind of an explanation. I knew, of course, you could train this, but the idea of adding noise to an image and then reconstructing, you don't have to depend on even, a lot of manual instructions that way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the model just learns it.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, okay. In this last segment, I now want to get your, few thoughts on the broad implications of AI, right? I think the very first question I had was that actually there is enough number of people out there who believe that the entire cycle that we are seeing, the wave, it's actually a big bubble, and there is a massive hype about generative AI. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about hype, to be honest. I'm not too much experienced in the. I've not seen like previous bubbles myself to like comment on whether this bubble is like similar to that bubble or not. But one thing I'm very sure about is that this field is here to stay, and there is a true economic value that this field provides. Now, whether the market is estimating it correctly or incorrectly is something that actually no one probably knows.
I think let me make it simpler. So usually, in very simple ways, hype is kind of the difference between the valuations that the market is getting, the startups are getting, versus if the difference between that valuation and the expected revenues to justify that valuation is hugely small comparatively, which means the use cases are not solid enough yet. Right?
Correctly.
That proportion is the measure of the hype. If it's roughly expected, right, then it's fine.
Yeah.
So that's what, if you think of it that way, where do you think now the cycle of hype is?
Yeah. So again, even in that sense, let's say you talk about like image models, right? And if you think of like impact to advertisement industry, like how big is the advertisement industry right now? Right? It's probably like several $100 billion industry.
Absolutely.
And the fact is that no one really knows how big of an impact generative AI is going to have to that field. Like I'm just giving you an example of like advertisement. There are many such industries like that. And it's just so hard to like estimate the valuation of a company that is supposed to make an impact to a field like that. So I think even when I talk to like VCs or when I talk to like people who are investing in these startups, they are trying to be as best as they can in estimating it, but the field is just moving so fast that they also acknowledge that they are just like not going to be successful in this.
How do the VCs in Silicon Valley and maybe other regions around the North American region, I think, how do they justify what is the estimation in this entire thing when there is practically no revenue for most companies. And that's fair enough that you don't have revenue right now. But what does an estimate even mean for a stage like this?
I think it's actually, I actually don't know, to be honest, to be like what math goes on in their head to like create a valuation of the company. But I think it's also driven a lot by what other people are doing. So if everyone in the field, like if a company like ourselves is getting X valuation, then it's fair for us to ask for X valuation. If you just think from a market perspective.
Absolutely, that we can agree on.
Yeah, and maybe that's how bubbles are also formed, to be honest, right? And when one of those companies also goes like down, and we saw this happen, like Stable Diffusion had a big valuation, and then a lot of core team members left, and now the company just stands in a state that no one knows how to value it anymore. And a lot of companies are also getting acquired by tech companies. So I think that also puts some mark on their valuation, because tech companies are actually buying them with like a real IPO'd stocks and things like that. So for example, Character AI got bought out, and not bought out, but like in a sense, it got like a kind of acquired. Inflection AI, Adapt AI. So with all these companies, I think you also get a more concrete estimate of how big tech like Amazon or Google or Microsoft is valuing these AI startups. And I think that's like a more concrete valuation that you can think of. Even like, for example, Leonardo got acquired by Canva. So you just keep getting like these data points, and you make an assumption that either everyone is wrong or everyone is right. But the truth is that I have to jump on this bandwagon, otherwise I'll miss out, right? And one thing that everyone just agrees on is just that the technology is here to stay, and it's going to be like a multi-billion-dollar industry for sure.
If it's multi-billion, we have a problem in our hands. It better be multi-trillion.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, like I think that's basically how it works, to be honest. And it might as well be like overhyped right now. Just like I think it's very natural when a technology so transformative comes, people would just get like extremely hyped about it. I think that's very natural for people to do, especially in this so interconnected world. But yeah, so far I think it's actually like paying off, right? People are not getting exhausted by AI. Like AI is actually getting ingrained in people's life more and more. At least the good thing is that it's here to stay, and it's like a concrete piece of technology that's going to make some impact. Now, what impact it's going to make is like something that no one really can answer. But people are just
when anybody talks about impact, it's like it'll boost your productivity, it'll boost your creativity. I'm like, I get it.
How much no one knows really.
How do we make exactly for what use case, for whom, for what kinds of companies, right? And by how much? All of these questions are unanswered. And I when I talk to people who know lesser about generative AI than I do, I have to sit down and tell them, listen, at this point, for example, for image generation, architects often approach me, and like I have a bunch of people who are phenomenal, like international level architects, and they are, they come to me, Nivedan, what are the top tools in AI for architects, right? People keep asking me, ki tool bata do for architecture, for stock market. I'm like, wait, listen, there are no tools for stock market, right? And in that sense, there are applications of models for stock markets, which is different from tools for stock markets. But anyway, so I tell them the best use case that I found for more of these defined things, like, and not from artist's POV, but from an architect's POV, I'm like, listen, right now, just wait it out a little bit and use things like, Midjourney, Ideogram and all as your idea boards, as your mood boards. Right? Use it for inspiration, for what you're thinking out there in your mind. Don't spend days to present something usable or for showing to your client. Maybe type out something and get a rough vision out there. It's like a very customized mood board available to you in seconds. And you've always had a problem with this, right? You're compiling random images from here and there, which and say to idea hai, some I don't really mean it. So I'm just saying,
exactly.
Anyone in such a field, a mood board is a great value add in some ways at this point. But anything beyond that, slightly tricky.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. I think now images at least are reaching at a phase where they're getting almost perfect. Right? Like I think we were at a stage before that images you can look at an image in a second, you can tell it's an AI generated image or not. But I think now it's getting to a phase where it's actually becoming more and more natural. Designs are like looking like more professional overall, like typography is getting better and better. But you still need tools on top of it. So let's say I type something, how do I edit it? Right? I want to use this font elsewhere. I want to position this text somewhere else. I think those technologies, at least from technological perspective, I don't think those technologies are far off into the future, and they would be out there pretty soon. Either we do it or someone else does it. Who knows? But yeah, I'm very confident in the sense that images probably would not remain just like an ideation tool for like in the next 2 years. I think an end-to-end pipeline for people to like create brand assets or posters and designs would be available, where people have a lot of control over it. And yeah, and that immediately like boosts the economical impact of this technology, which would be very exciting to see.
So is this something in your pipeline in some immediate term where you want to say that, whatever we generate, we want to make it editable more? Is that something really important to you guys at Ideogram?
I cannot comment on that right now. Sorry.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's an idea that I think everyone thinks about. I think Canva already is executing it in a very nice way, and they are trying to integrate it into technology. But just from a technological perspective, if I think about it, I think generating real images was the main challenge. Now all of this is like very doable. Yeah.
Got it. Fair enough. I think one last question that I would like to ask you is, this question of the impact of generative AI models, especially the creative models, which essentially the idea is the artists. I'm sure you've seen these comments on some of these videos. I wanted my robots to clean my house and do my dishes,
Right.
and I wanted to paint. Okay. But it's the opposite. Now it seems like they're going to paint and I'm going to keep doing my dishes. So I'm just saying this is a pattern. I want to know what is the take of someone like you who's at the forefront of it, who's literally innovating all of these things, making them available to masses. I get that. I think that's fair. You have the mission to democratize access to creativity.
Right.
I completely agree with that, first of all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that is there. But how would you describe it? How would you kind of explain your take, your position to someone who is already an artist, who dreams of making art for a living, especially for those people, right? I'm not an artist. I'm really happy, right? But what about those people? Do they have something to worry about? If yes, what can they do? And if not, why not?
Yeah. Again, this comes from a limited experience, because I'm much more enthusiastic about just the technological aspect of it and what it can do. But one thing I personally feel is that given that these models are going to become more and more popular, I think the demand for handmade art would actually increase much more. I think people will start valuing human connection in general way more than they value it now, because what internet did or social networks did was that it still connected us to people. So we did not say that, okay, this technology just drove us away from people, but it did drive us away from like face-to-face communication, right? And we are seeing now that people are like valuing that quite a lot. Then maybe they used to they maybe took it for granted like 20 years ago, and now they're like actually valuing that, hey, let's just talk face-to-face. Let's not talk over like chat and stuff like that. And I think the same thing, at least to me, it feels like from AI. Like if my all workflow is surrounded by these technologies, and they give me an option to like just interact with them and not need any people around me, then I would end up valuing the communication with people way more than I would have before, right? If I want to appreciate a painting, I would only be able to appreciate paintings that are made by human artists rather than made by an AI model, because I would just look at an AI model and say that, okay, it did not take as much effort, which is the purpose of the AI model, that it should not take as much effort to create great art. But just the fact that it did not take so much effort would not make me appreciate it as much as it would make me appreciate like a painting by a famous artist that they made by hand. So I personally think that the demand for that will, and it's the same analogy as photography actually, right? Like when photography came around, maybe people said that, hey, what's the point of like me painting anymore if people can take photos?
Yeah,
but it did not pan out that way, right? Because paintings are still like there on the museums.
I think the simple observation is, I think however many copies of Mona Lisa are floating around, the real Mona Lisa's value is not depreciating, man. It's only appreciating.
Yeah, exactly. No matter, even if you pixel by pixel generate that image in your text-to-image model, it just does not contain that history of Yeah, so another thing is that when an art is made by a human, there is like just so much story behind it and so much history, and that's basically what the value of art is. And there's not as much story to go with like an AI generated image, right? And I think a lot about art is just the story that goes behind it rather than just the final outcome of that image.
Yes.
Like I appreciate Van Gogh's image, but I appreciate more about what situation was he in when he actually painted those images and what was going through his head. So I think that thing is just intangible to like humanity and will just remain there. And I do not see like any issue with that. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I think that's a fair take.
Yeah.
I am overall a high optimist, and I've actually surprisingly, I'm the most distant person from art world and filmmaking world, and I've spoken most to some senior filmmakers, writers, musicians, and so on. And I've addressed groups of 400 people, literally, and all of them skeptical. They're like, "कुछ तो बंदा कोई AI का workshop करने आया है," and I would spend 3 to 4 hours with them, explain to them like how generative AI came into being, what does it mean, what it can do, what it cannot, right?
Right.
Because once you tell people this much is possible, our imagination is wild. We imagine
Yeah.
everything on the planet. Like, oh, it has made one painting, now it will do everything art.
Yeah.
It's a
Exactly.
big
Yeah.
jump that you make from here to there, right? If it can make a 3 second video, it can make an entire movie.
Exactly.
Things
Yeah.
like those are, I could kind of tame them down, right? And
Right.
like
Right.
their expectations down, their imaginations down. Because an artist, especially, is gifted with greater imagination. They can attach to meaningful stories to supposedly relatively trivial things with great capacity, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
I spend that 3 4 hours, and people enter with skepticism and a slightly, a side eye at me, and then by the end of, they're all excited. Oh no, AI is great. I want to try it. This is cool. Tell me the latest tools. And I
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
that transition, and it's primarily
Yeah.
because I've reminded them, listen, you're not into art because it's hard to make or easy to make. You're into it because
Yeah.
that's a form of self-expression,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
you
And
can
I think
express it, your
yeah.
authenticity will matter, your story will matter, the effort
Mhm.
you put. If people are able to appreciate that, all of that matters, and then the output is art.
Right, right, exactly. And yeah, and it actually resonates with all the people that we talk with that use Ideogram. A lot of them are artists. They are not just artists because when generative AI came around, and all of them are just like have figured out some way to incorporate that into their pipeline. They were not forced to do that, but they found out that this technology is actually helping them in many ways. Like as you said, like ideation is one of those things, and just like and also like these tools also just help you connect with other people, like-minded people who are working on art. You go to their profiles and you see what images they have generated, and that gives you inspiration sometimes that, oh, he's thinking this way. Now I got this idea from here, let me paint this now. And yeah, I think like even if you're a painter, it's just such a hard work to paint stuff that you imagine versus you can generate like thousands of images on Ideogram in a day and then paint what you really want to
Yeah.
out of them. I think it's just so much helpful in many ways for people who are already in art, and I also find it fine that people are scared of it. I think it's very natural for people to be hyped and scared about a new technology. It's very nice with natural human
There's
discourse.
always polarity around anything new, by the way.
Yes, exactly. And overhype is also wrong, and over scared is also wrong. But a balance of hype and scare is definitely needed, I think, for any technology. We need to be cautious about how it is being used and what can it do. But I think at this point, at least in images, I feel like it's just such a friendly technology. It's just helping you in so many ways, not really replacing you in anything. So yeah, that's basically my take. Yeah.
Wonderful, man. So I think these are all the questions I had in mind. You've answered them wonderfully. And this was very useful, man. And, I especially wanted your take sitting behind the scenes of, something like as frontier a model as Ideogram. You have a different kind of an insight given all the people you're surrounded with. I can absolutely like, or rather I would say I can barely imagine the conversations you're having with the people around you. Right? So I think that gives you a special insight into all of this when you have a pool of people thinking about the same things, dealing with similar problems that you've already said.
Right.
And earlier it was probably in terms of a personal connect was IIT Bombay. Now when it comes to your work, and you need people who you can relate to with the problems that you face day in day out. right?
Right.
I'm sure you're heavily funded now, and there are other entrepreneurial responsibilities that you have, which are very different from being only an innovator. So
Right.
I
Right.
haven't been able to touch this aspect, which I wanted to, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip that question today. But this has been a phenomenal conversation for me. Thank you so much, Chitwan. I really appreciate this.
Thanks a lot. It was just a lot of fun just talking about these things and going back to my IIT days and Google days and things like that. So yeah, thanks a lot. I was able to walk through that memory lane.
If you want to stay on top of the latest AI news and tools, make sure to subscribe me now and press the bell icon.